went to all of them, but the one was just so perfect.
Oh, good. Good, good.
Now, when I put my chat screen here, can you guys see it in the middle?
Yep. Looks good.
Ew. Okay, then. That's not good. I was going to do a who's here thing, but maybe I won't. Open timer.
Yeah, so what do you want to do with questions? Do you want me to interrupt you during the presentation, or do you want to wait for a few minutes at the end?
I think I want them in the middle because I'm teaching a lot of stuff today. So why don't you just stop me since I won't see the chat?
Okay.
And I'm going to set my timer, Terry, so that I'll try to stop at least by 25 minutes. How's that sound?
Okay. And then I guess for mine's a shorter presentation, so maybe questions at the end, or even questions for both of us at the end. If there are no questions, you might have an additional survey that you want to do with everybody.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
asking me if I have a survey or Cindy?
I do. I have a lot. I have way too much information.
Okay. Well, started here in a couple minutes. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Still snowing here in Fairbanks.
Oh, you're in Fairbanks.
Yeah.
Oh, it was snowing here a little bit ago too.
I like your art in the background, Teresa.
Thank you. That's my cousin painted that for me when she was visiting for about 3 weeks. So I wanted birch trees and poppies.
Oh, cool.
How has attendance been, Heidi? Do you have any sense of the conference?
We've got about 200 people registered. It looks like about 130, 150 are going to the main sessions. This morning we had 60 to 80 in my breakout room. So
Great.
yeah, pretty good attendance, I would say.
Yeah, success.
So it looks like it's 1:45. So just so we can stay on track with timing, we'll get going here. I'm Heidi Rader. I'll be the moderator for this room. We've got Cindy Carnes and Teresa Brown presenting from Anchorage, Palmer, about the Anchor Gardens, a grassroots effort building community and food security in Anchorage.
All right. So welcome, everybody. My name is Cindy, and I know some of you because I've cruised through the Who's Here list. And I'm excited to talk to you today about Anchor Gardens. We're going to do this in two parts. I was going to do Who's Here, but I think I can't see the chat from what I'm doing. So I think we're going to skip this. I'll just tell you a little bit about me. And that is, here we go. I grew up in Fairbanks and went outside for school, returned to Wrangell, lived in Wrangell Southeast for 10 years. Moved back to North Pole when our kids were teenagers so we could have help with relatives. And then recently, well, semi-recently, about 13 years ago, moved down to South Central. So I've been all around the state, not Western. And I've never lived on the North Slope, but I visit there often. Anyway, yeah, so we're going to talk to you about Anchor Gardens today. I'm going to talk about the design of a network, and I was very exciting. If some of you were in that morning session with, I can't remember her name now, from Prescott College. Anyway, they're doing a network thing, so we are right on board with that. And then Teresa's going to tell you about exactly how it worked out this summer. So we're a brand new Anchor Gardens organization. I put the mission on here. It's not the exact wording, but basically we're providing anyone in the municipality knowledge, tools, supplies, anything to start gardening for more food security in Anchorage. So here's the first thing I want you to do. Since I'm in the afternoon, I always try to do something more interactive. So I'm going to have you click on this connection right here. And if you don't, so I did it on mine. I think
Cindy, it's the first link in the chat.
it's the first link in the chat. So you can click that, just go out of and add a new tab and see if you can answer what are your burning issues around food security in Alaska? What are your burning issues? Not all of them, just the ones that you really care about. And then submit your answers. Questions? Are you guys there? Are you doing it? It's hard to teach without seeing people's eyeballs.
People are not seeing it in the chat.
Yeah, I think we'll have to repaste it. Can you repaste it, Heidi?
Yeah, I can repaste it. It says they're asking for the code.
Yeah, so the code I thought was already on there. I'll show you right here. 6248706.
6248706.
Okay. Wow, this is very finicky. Let's see about answers. Okay, I've posted the answers on my screen. If you can go back to screen share or back to the Zoom, if you've already inputted. We got ESL access. That's interesting. Ooh, climate change is getting bigger. Hi, can you guys see the page? I'm hoping, Heidi, you're gonna have to answer me because I can't see the chat.
Yep, looks good.
Okay. Cost, it's a good one. Sustainability. Traditional foods is getting bigger. That's great. The more people choose it, the bigger it gets, which is kind of cool. You can continue this if you want to. You can also have the word cloud sent to you. This is a program called Menti, and you can play with it for your presentations too. It's kind of farmers. Nice. It's mesmerizing. Growing space, good. Okay, I think what I'm going to do is go back. Not that your answers aren't important. Please continue to do this, but we do have a timeline. Sadly, we can't stay here all day. All right. So those are huge, huge problems, and the problems are so complex. It's crazy. You can't get your thoughts around it, because how do you solve all those problems? The real deal is that, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. Rich Seifert from UAF used to say, teaching anybody in Alaska is like punching the Pillsbury Doughboy. You do something and it just bounces back. It's a system that won't change no matter what you do. And it's because we're all doing little parts of the system and nobody's really looking at the whole. Who's willing to put the time in? So I came across a class put on by June Holly, and I took it last year. It's called Networking, Network Weavers. And she really got me when she said it's a way to shift power and change culture. And I'm sure all of us have done a number of years of work in this area in the state of Alaska. And you know how frustrating it can be if things don't change or things go backwards or whatever. And I'm old. I guess maybe that is part of the problem. I'm just tired of doing stuff that doesn't make a difference. So we got really lucky. We had a crisis this year, and oftentimes I think that crises, when crises happen, then we're able to change. So that's what happened here, but it's really scary. And one of the very scary things is that we have to unlearn the dominant culture's pattern of control. And I was a teacher, an 8th grade teacher for 25 years, and I know how much that system, another system I tried to change unsuccessfully, is just forming people into that hierarchy thinking, survival of the fittest, all that kind of stuff. That is not good. But unfortunately, we've brought all those things into our current systems. That's the culture that we were raised in. A lot of it's because of school, but it's also the economy. So I want you to think right now about the organizations or systems you're a part of. And June had these that I stole from her, the Good Old Boys Network. I'm sure if I could see a raising of hands, you would be totally aware of the Good Old Boys Network. I often found myself outside the Good Old Boys Network trying to put new ideas in, and it's very frustrating. But I've also been in the Good Old Boys Network, and I felt like I could trust my partners and we could move fast and we could do things. In my opinion, they didn't last, but it felt good while we were doing it. The next one is the Elephant Network, and that's, you can see that in the military. It's chain of command. It's in our culture. We've taught this chain of command. Even the game of telephone, you know how it might go bad at the end. That's one of the downsides to that. You're only connected to the top and the bottom. You can't see the whole picture. Here's one I like because I was a teacher for so long. I like to be at the center and I like to disseminate information. What happens with this is one person's in control and feels like they're in control, but the whole can't operate as a whole because it's all dependent on the middle person. If when that person gets sick or something happens, everything collapses. So that one works sort of as long as you have a strong person in the middle but I don't think it's sustainable. I think my metaphor of teaching in that model is very unsustainable in reality. Here's what most of us are doing now. A lot of us, we heard what Kenai is doing. We heard what Sitka's doing. We heard what we're kind of connected, but we're not really. We're barely connected to each other. We're self-selected groups. And you can also see this in a middle school cafeteria, high school cafeteria. People select groups, or on Facebook, people select groups where they're comfortable being, and it doesn't really get the diversity that you need. So full disclosure, I'm a permaculture teacher, designer, and that since I retired in 2008, I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And it's the idea of using nature as a design model. So it's a web. And different things are dependent on different things. It's a lot stronger than any of the other organizational models that I just showed you. So June Holly in this class said, okay, it's important to use networks. And I like that right away when the problem or opportunity is big. And Alaska is a big state, and food security is a huge issue, or homelessness for that matter, or whatever the issue, it's huge. So a network is a good thing to use. When you need new ideas and fresh thinking, it's important to pull in diverse people and diverse ideas. So that's another reason to use a network. When you really can't think of any solutions because it's such a big problem, it's important to use a network. When you need to engage people from different backgrounds, and we are, at least in Anchorage, are one of the most, maybe the most diverse school district, for instance, and community, in the state. So we need to engage people from different backgrounds. So I have a survey here. Instead of preaching to you about what a network is, let's see if I can make that happen. Did I give that one to you, Heidi, or no?
Another survey, sorry, what was that?
Yeah, I didn't give it to you, I bet. Let me see if I can get it into the chat. It's loading slowly. One of the things that I was thinking when I was designing this is it's afternoon and you guys can't just sit there. You'll be falling asleep in your chair. So that's why I designed all these little things for you to do. So bear with me as I put this into the chat, which means I have to present, which means I have to chat, which means I put it right here. Oh, I saw Melissa wrote Love Rich Seifert. Yep. Oh, return. There you go. If you can go to that link right there and fill out that survey, it might give you an idea, I hope, about what it calls for people to be a network weaver, a network person. Are you able to go there? Are you alive?
Yep, I see it.
Okay, I'm going to fill it out on my screen as you guys fill out yours. I'm open to new ideas. Try to be as honest as possible. Okay, mine's been submitted. Let's see if I can get to the results page. Not that the results are that important. In fact, maybe I'll just skip the results. If the spirit moves you, it would be nice if somebody could unmute and just say what you learned from taking the survey. What did you surmise about being in a network from that survey?
Hey, this is Lori Price. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thanks, Lori, for being the first person.
Yeah, I guess the thing I learned sorry, my dogs. Let me sneak to another room. Is I'm really open to possibilities, but looking at trying to let go of control is a hard one for me. So recognizing that.
Yes, huge, huge issue for me too. Anybody else?
Maybe letting go of preconceived ideas, being
Mhm.
willing to hear all points of view.
Yeah, that's a good one. Nobody else, really? You're all sleeping. I know, I knew it. I knew it. Okay, so I'll move on since you're sleeping. I hope not. So what we learned this summer, we started this network thing. We had to have a lot of collaboration, but that collaboration took patience, curiosity, discomfort, humility, and trust was such a huge issue. If you don't trust the person to show up and bring tools to your garden, it's not going to help your network to become closer. So at every opportunity, we try to build trust in our network. You can see this picture of this woman. You either see the young woman or the old woman. If you're looking at the young woman, her feathers right here, and she's turning and looking and pointing that way. But if you see the old woman, she's looking down. Here's her mouth, and here's her nose, and here's her eyes. People see different things. I automatically go to the young person, but people see that and go only to the old person. So you could argue and argue and argue about what your perspective is, and you're both right. So you have to be willing to listen. Network Weavers has a whole bunch of these posters available to download about the values of being in a network. And I like this one because it is like connected to Alaska. So honoring differences is huge. So we had decided to build a network, and we had to chart it. And that was the hardest part. And once you chart it, you can see new connections and new opportunities. But without charting it, without writing it down, it's really hard to see. So here's what an example of what I might have done when I taught sixth grade one year. We had some kids that were not learning and kids that were very social. And I just asked them to pick 2 kids that they could work with. And then I would map it out, and it looks something like this. So you can see that poor old Sam here, nobody wants to work with him. He or she picked 2 people that she or he could work with, but no arrows to him. That is not good, because a isolated person in school isn't good at all. Lily is also isolated, and you can see that Meg has lots of people that want to work with her. 4. So you could take this then and change the system up so that your people your outliers aren't left alone. It could be that this is a good old boys club. You need to change that around so that people work together better and collaboration is more available to people. This is my favorite story. It's the old story of the blind men and the elephant. You could call the elephant the Alaska Food Policy Council or the food groups in Alaska or whatever. Or it was our case for Anchor Gardens. That was, okay, what are we doing here? We know that we want people to be responsible to get their own food. So how do we do it? And different people had different perspectives. So it's not until you start sharing those perspectives that you get a whole picture. So we need to have patterns of engagement and how to do that. And I'm so excited Alaska Food Policy Council is doing this, because this will really help us move forward, I think. Here was my idea of what was going to happen for Anchor Gardens. I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I were in Wrangell? You can just make things happen because it's a small town. And then I thought, well, we're already in neighborhoods for our community councils. So why don't I just get a coach who would like to, you know, teach other people about gardening and put that person here, and then they could have little gardeners, and these guys could have gardeners, and they would have a little community, and it would be a little community, and all would be well, and we would grow food, and yay. Here's what it happened. And I think I can click on this and take you to it. It's quite amazing. We used Kumu for this one. The last simple one was Jamboard that you can use on Google. It's a free thing, and you just put stickies out. But this one is Kumu. And I'm just gonna move my screen over a little bit so you can see it. So here's the people in our Anchor Garden networks. And right here, you can see that there's two main people. You can guess who they are. Cindy is right here. You can click on it and you see Cindy Carnes right there. And here's Teresa right here, who didn't fill out any of her stuff, but she's there. The idea is to have a network so you can see, and obviously I like being a spoke because I am the spoke, but then you can see other people who are also spokes. Ira Edwards, if you don't know Ira, he's awesome. And he does a lot of gardening. He knows a lot of people. And so he, because of COVID, couldn't be a coach, but he did a lot of coaching on Facebook. Here's another person, Liz Holmgren. If you know Liz, she knows a lot of people. These are the people that I want to coach their neighborhoods. The other thing about this is that it wasn't neat and nice because we live in a big town, and everybody, the different colors represents different communities. I mean, different neighborhoods. And you can see that everybody knows everybody in town. It's all crisscrossed around here. So the real idea though in this is there's no good old boy network. We start to start trying to pull these outliers in. So this person right here, who is Chris Cronick, I don't know him, but he's excited and he may be a gardening coach next year. And what I want to do then is start connecting him to some other people that he may or may not know, and they could get together and do something. He is an experimenter. So we might put a whole group together of people that want to do growing experiments, and they can go off on their own and do their own thing and come back and report about what they're doing. The cool thing about networks is you don't have to do everything. You just tell people, what do you want to do? And they go for it. You just say, okay, what do you need from us? What do you need from me? What do you need from whoever? And that's what they do. So what would happen if we started? Now, I did this without seeing that Anchor Gardens is, or not Anchor Gardens. Sorry, I'm trying to close tabs here. Oh dear, we're headed for a crisis. Before the presentation today, and I said to myself, what would happen if we started mapping our whole system here? And has anyone started already? They're just now starting. This is the beginning, this conference. What would we learn from this? Who would be missing? And the question that I like to ask the most is, where is the power, and how can you see that on a map? And how can you distribute power instead of keeping it in the center? And the other question that I ask a lot when we're doing our Anchor Garden stuff is, who's really missing in this? And at one time, I thought that the master gardeners were missing, but I was reassured that they were there. They just weren't announcing that they were master gardeners. So it's really, really important to map your network so you can see what you're doing. So if you want more information on network weaving, I would absolutely love to talk to you, because I'm stuck. I'm trying to, you saw that crazy mess of a map. I need to know some more coding and different things to do what I want it to do. But if you're also interested in Anchor Gardens, that would be awesome to help this whole Anchorage community start you know, fending for itself instead of relying on the lower 48 or farmers from the valley. So here's what I was gonna do. I don't think I have time, but you should check out Jamboard. I was gonna have you guys do a little map of our own here. And Jamboard, you just go to little squares in your Google Mail program and pull down to Jamboard, and you can make your own little map. I had, are you a backyard gardener, a market farmer, a food transport person, charity or food bank, or an educational person? And then once we saw that, we could see, oh gosh, who's not at this meeting that should be. So I encourage you to do that with your communities. And now part 2, what actually happened this summer with Anchor Gardens. And I'm gonna, I guess nobody's asked questions. Does anybody want to ask me a question or two right now before we go to the second part?
I think I'll try to have time at the end too for more questions for both of us.
If anyone would like to unmute, you all have that ability, so feel free. I don't see
Hi
any
there.
questions. Oh.
My name's Allie. Thank you so much for this presentation. I currently work at Anchorage Community Land Trust with their Grow North Farm project, which is an urban farm in Mountain View.
I think I met you, Allie.
You probably did at one point. I recognize a lot of names. So one of the things that we're working on the farm is trying to, I was actually the one who put ESL access on that original map, because we're trying to increase mentorship opportunities for the refugee population and immigrant population in Anchorage, because there's definitely a lot of knowledge here and not necessarily a lot of accessibility for folks that aren't already in tune with those networks. So I'm, and perhaps this can be something that, or is this is something that you'll address later. I'm curious.
Well, interestingly enough, Nick was one of our coaches.
Oh, good. Okay. So yeah, I'm curious about how you reached out to folks in the community to get this started. Was it just using existing networks, or have you worked with agencies or other nonprofits in town to try and generate some more traction within the communities that they serve?
That is my next step. This is only because I probably taught over 100 students permaculture. So that was my network out, and Permaculture Guild in Anchorage. But then other people had different networks, and we just combined all our networks and did that. But my next step then, of course, is to go through other agencies to see if they want to network. We're on our we have a little core group, and Tikan is on that one, and he's going to be helpful in doing that. We're reaching out, but you know, we're brand new. We started when the COVID hit. So yeah.
Good question. Really good question.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think, can I just go ahead and launch into it?
Sure.
Or, okay, because I'll try to be concise as much as I can be and leave room at the end for brainstorming, some ideas, suggestions, really kind of maybe have time to capture some of the collective wisdom of this group. So my part of the talk is taking a closer look at the Anchor Garden movement. And so it was created early March with 4 people talking about food security, looking at this Victory Garden movement in the lower 48 happening, spreading nationwide, and wanting to bring it up to Anchorage to address food security. We're the end of the shipping line, and we were seeing disruptions in our food supplies. And so Cindy was one of those 4 people, Meg Zalatel, Courtney Munson, and Olivia DeBusk. And Meg created our Anchor Garden logo. We also had Jay Stange was one of the early, I think, members of Anchor Gardens, and he connected us with NeighborWorks Alaska, which became our fiscal sponsor. And our vision was created to increase food security in Anchorage. And our mission is to make gardening resources, materials accessible to everyone, regardless of income or home ownership. And we wanted to connect individuals and their skills to a network with the purpose of building social capital through gardening. And so all of these pictures that are on here are pictures that I took this summer through all the various outreach that we had. And we'll go into what those were. Our guiding principles set up were that everyone is a leader. It's not a top-down structure. Anyone is invited to join any committee or be a member of the core team or become a coach. We prioritize those activities that are consistent with our mission, that provide the greatest impact. We recruit, facilitate, incorporate diverse perspectives. We want to experiment and we want to learn from our mistakes. Those are incredibly valuable. We also want to support each other, especially in our successes. We encourage collaboration and we practice consensus decision-making, as difficult as that can be. Our goal was to create 5 new gardens in every neighborhood. What we considered the neighborhoods were those that had an existing community council. So that was a total of 36 neighborhoods that we were working with, and we were able to successfully find 25 coaches, 25 neighborhoods to have a coach. We had many neighborhoods that had more than one coach. We had a total of 36 coaches. Cindy created a Facebook page for every neighborhood. And that was so that there wouldn't be too much distraction from people in Eagle River talking about Eagle River stuff and people in South Anchorage. So she separated it. And then we had a main Facebook page where we could come together and collaborate and share resources and knowledge. We also created materials teaching people how to build lasagna gardenings. These were materials that we made accessible to the coaches so that they could disseminate them to the neighborhood. We had thousands and thousands of seeds donated. They came from individual gardeners. They came from the National Victory Garden organization, sent us a bunch of free seeds. We also had hundreds of seedlings donated. And this was in the early days. Cindy and Meg set up connections with the hydroponics. There was a pot grower out in Palmer. Like these, we had different businesses willing to grow us seedlings and then donate them so that we could give them out to our Anchor Garden members. We, in May, we were able to get trailer loads of horse compost, cow compost, organic topsoil. And we found multiple locations throughout Anchorage to store these materials to make them accessible to everyone in Anchorage. Most coaches consulted or helped with at least 4 to 5 new gardens in their neighborhood. We weren't able to get exact numbers. It's possible that maybe next spring we can get a more accurate number of how many new gardens were actually built. We did have like incredible successes in some neighborhoods. Nunaka Valley had 30 new gardens started. We had a demonstration garden created at Bragara Community Gardens. We have a teacher who wants to create a community garden in Penland Trailer Park, and she made a lot of inroads this summer in getting that to happen. So it's possible next summer we might be able to realize and build a community garden there. We had many partners. I just named a few of them. Yardacopia, Grow North, Catholic Social Services partnered with us, offering us resources and also experience. I especially spent a lot of time talking with Nick from Yardicopia in regards to managing huge stockpiles of leaves and cardboard and manure. And his advice was invaluable for me. Grow North had access to a lot of mulch, wood chips that were also invaluable. And then just there's a ton of experience there as well. And we created multiple locations for stored materials, as I mentioned. And then we had a piece of land donated to us, which I'll talk about in a few minutes, where we built a community garden. And we do have a refugee family from Grow North in that community garden that Grow North connected us, Catholic Social Services connected us with. So there was a lot of sharing of and helping one another, which was invaluable. I just want to just touch base on our main Facebook page. We grew so fast, so early. For Cindy and I, it became a full-time job as early as early April, and it was just each week. It was like hundreds of people joining each week, and when you join, you fill out a real short participation form, which then goes to Cindy, and then she connects the new participant to their coach in their neighborhood. And if there isn't a coach in the neighborhood, then she would try to connect them to a coach from another neighborhood. And that was something that I did. I was the coach of Airport Heights, but I did help other interested folks that were outside of my neighborhood as well, as much as I could. And when we were growing exponentially, I started thinking in large upscaling. And this is where talking to Yardicopia really helped. I saw the need for stockpiling large quantities of these materials that we used for lasagna gardening. And so it made it easy once I started finding all of these materials to then agree to build this community garden. But for the main Facebook page, back to this point here, we currently have 1,100 members, and we got to that number, I think by the beginning of June. We were at 1,100 members, and this just started in March. So it was fast and furious. And it was a thriving community network. That main Facebook page is very busy. There's lots of sharing of resources and knowledge. And this is knowledge coming from master gardeners, permaculturists, backyard gardeners, and lots of beginner gardeners. And what I loved about it was the energy that is within that group, our group. Someone asks a question, you don't just get one answer. People were like, dozens of people were giving their expert, sharing their knowledge. It was also a great place for sharing our successes and failures. And I started seeing the potential of a buyer's network where we could collectively pool money to purchase grain from Delta Junction, or meat or bison, or just supporting our Alaskan farmers and using this this network to buy large purchases. And that's not something that we've done a lot of yet, but it's where we might go. One of many things that we could potentially do in the future. So in talking about lasagna gardening, I just wanted to show you a little bit of the types of materials that you're going to need. Lasagna gardening or sheet mulching is how we build gardens using permaculture. And so lots of cardboard, manure, leaves, straw, these are all waste streams that we capture as nature does to build this layered gardening. And if you know where to go, or you have a network such as Anchor Gardens that makes it easy for you to find these materials or has them already collected for you, this type of gardening doesn't have to cost any money. Let's move this. So one of the things that we did in mid-May was to create cow convoys, as I called them. every year I have my permaculture design certificate. And since I've been using this type of gardening style, I have been going out to Havemeister Dairy to get their composted cow manure. And so I put out a call out there on the main Facebook page of Anchor Gardens that any interested people that wanted to join the convoy out to Havemeister Dairy to buy 4-year-old composted cow manure to show up at my place. And so this first picture is our very first cow convoy, and I think we had like 5 trucks, and we had to wait till the ground thawed for Bob Havemeister to be able to get his equipment out to where his piles were. And so we were his very first convoy. And my experience has taught me that he sells out pretty quickly. And this year, with the heightened emphasis on gardening, I was really concerned that, you know, it was going to sell out even quicker. So we organized these convoys about every 2 or 3 days. And what I did was I collected donations from a couple of businesses and a few individuals, enough to buy about 4 or 5 cubic yards of cow compost. And we put those in 3 different locations throughout Anchorage and made that accessible to the members of Anchor Gardens for a donation. And if folks were struggling, they lost their job or low income, we made it free. But with the donations, then I was able to continue to have cow convoys to go get more, because this manure, it wasn't manure anymore. 4 years composted, it was black gold. It was a very nutrient dense resource. And and that was just also a lot of fun, getting to know people and people not knowing each other, and building that community, building that trust. And for a lot of people, just going out to the dairy farm, which is really quite beautiful, 160 cows, was really fun and exciting for them. Also in early May, we had this vacant lot donated. The landowner was going to build a retirement home, but because of the pandemic, put that on hold, but wanted the land to be used for a community garden. So Mary Ellen Garner and I, both of us are market gardeners, we decided to take this on, and we designed this. This is our very first draft of what this permaculture demonstration community garden would look like. And so we built it. So we built a teaching space here. We knew at that time that we had a greenhouse that was going to be donated. And but we didn't really have a lot of gardeners at that point in time, but we were just building it on faith. And so we put together our objectives. We wanted it for people who didn't have land to garden. We wanted it to be a teaching space, primarily teaching about permaculture. We wanted to build community, and we wanted it to be beautiful. So I was not interested in building a community garden that had rectangles. I wanted shapes and spirals and curves. And we also wanted to capture waste streams, which is a key component to permaculture. And so this is just a few examples of what waste we were capturing. Very first day that we were there, I went and talked to the manager of City Market, which we were right next to, and they agreed to give us all their produce trimmings. And so we were getting garbage bag fulls every day of their produce. And this shows that we're composting it now, but at the beginning, we were using it for our layers, building up our lasagna gardening. We had wood chips. We have 2 mushroom farmers in Anchorage give us their mycelium waste. We were collecting our rainwater off of our donated greenhouse. Lots of manure, spent grain, lots of cardboard, lots of leaves and straw. And none of this cost us any money. we had numerous work parties, and I used the main page of the Anchor Gardens Facebook page to advertise the work parties. And it was so inspiring to see how every time I put out a work party, we had between 6 and 10 people show up. We were really, really conscious about COVID and people wearing masks or socially distancing for sure. And so we didn't want large gatherings, and we didn't get large amounts, but we got consistent volunteers showing up at every single work party. And I frequently put out on the main page a wish list for donations that we needed. And so we put signs up on the fence of, manure here, goat manure here, or leaves here, or spent grain there. And so it was so fun to show up there every day and see consistently 10 bags of leaves being donated overnight, or cardboard or whatnot. It was such an energetic, incredible community that helped us build this, which we started May 10th. And so this is just kind of the evolution of the gardening, where, you're laying down a lot of cardboard, and then you're adding your layers of manure, brown, green, your layers of produce, layers of the mycelium, more manure. You could use wood chips, and then the final layer being organic topsoil, which from all of the donations collected from the cow convoys, we raised enough money to purchase 2 trailer loads of Susitna organic topsoil. And we put those in 2 different locations, one at the I Street Garden and one in Chugiak, and made that available to the Anchor Garden community, again, for a donation. And this is just another couple of examples of more waste. We had multiple trailers of horse compost, goat poo. We had chicken manure. We also had the cow compost. And we shared the resources of just like where to go get free compost up on the hillside. This is already composted horse manure, and it's free. And so, just another example of how the main Facebook page just really stepped up and shared where to get all the materials that you were going to need. And then this page is just like what the garden looked like. We grew or built 13 beds. 4 of them were beginner gardeners. 3 of them are market gardeners, myself and Mary Ellen. And then we had a refugee family that were market gardeners as well. First Presbyterian Church also had a few beds that they grew and donated 100% to the food bank. One of the tenets that we realized pretty early on with whoever grew in the garden, we wanted them to be a part of building the garden. And so we had all these work parties at the beginning of May, at the beginning of building it, but we continued to have work parties throughout the summer and then again in the fall, because there was just a lot of work that went into this garden. And we were able to plant at the beginning of June. So we did all of this in 3 weeks with the help of many volunteers.
Carrie, that's we have 9 minutes left.
Oh, thanks. Okay. And so we also did workshops there every Sunday for the month of June until the COVID numbers got a little too high. These are just an example of the topics that we covered. What we made the workshops free, like a 40-minute workshop, and we did a work exchange of 20 minutes of labor. And this last topic is basically how you can support us going forward. You can become a member of the Anchor Gardens by joining our Facebook page. You could become a coach. We do not have a coach in every neighborhood, and we would love to be able to have one for every neighborhood next spring. You could become a member of our core group, or you could donate through NeighborWorks Alaska. This weekend, NeighborWorks Alaska has given us permission to use their link on their homepage, and all donations made over this weekend will go exclusively to Anchor Gardens, and we'll use that money for creating more educational materials and also providing the materials for the lasagna gardening going forward. So that's it for me.
Cool. So what questions, I'm getting some questions on here. Terry, do you remember the size of the I Street Garden?
Oh, 3,750 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's the land was donated temporarily until the landowner is going to build, but she absolutely loves what we've done, loves Anchor Gardens. She's given us permission next year to grow on it. And even when she builds, she is very excited and open to keeping the community garden there. The other interesting thing was how the neighborhood watched this unfold quickly, because it was built in just a little over 3 weeks. And the feedback that we got from the neighborhood, they were so appreciative of the beautifying of this vacant lot, which was just tall grass, and weeds for previous years. And when they found out that it was a community garden, they were even more excited. And I think that's how we picked up 3 of our gardeners were from neighbors walking by and watching this unfold. And we also had a few of our neighbors attend our workshops as well, because they wanted to learn more about what we were teaching and what we were doing.
Darcy just asked, what are the requirements for being neighborhood coach? We don't have any requirements because everybody's a leader. So you get to be what you want to be. And there were some coaches that went way overboard. What I thought I was a pretty poor coach, but I called people on the phone. It was a pandemic. So I didn't do any tours. I didn't do anything. I stayed away from people, and I commuted on Facebook. But there were people that had amazing things happening in the yard to come by and pick up for their other neighbors. Signs were made. I mean, it was crazy. So probably because everybody was stuck at home that all this happened. I don't know why it happened, but it did. The pandemic worked for us in this thing. So if you want to be a coach, Darcy, just let me know and I'll sign you up.
Yeah, Darcy, we would love to. And it's really what you have the time and energy to give. I'm not a coach of Airport Heights anymore, because my focus shifted from Airport Heights to building the community garden, and helping to organize the workshops and other things. So Airport Heights could certainly use more coaches, but it's what you have the time to do. And a lot of the consultations that I did were over the phone, but I also had stockpiles on the property. So people came to the property and I would load them up with all the various materials that I had collected. So yeah, great question.
Were most of the gardens you talked about built on private property? Yes. We had that one I Street Garden was public space. We have one that the Permaculture Guild did on a church lot that's not being taken care of very well, but we're kind of claiming that one as well. Maybe if we could get more gardeners to adopt that one this year. That's at Central Lutheran Church. But everything else was backyards. And I it's so hard to figure out what a new garden is. Because some of my neighbors came to me and said, I haven't gardened for 5 years, but I'm going to try it this year. So I counted that as a new garden. So I probably had 8 gardens in my neighborhood out here on Eagle River Road. But a lot of people had brand new gardeners, like 10 of them. And the problem was, I thought the new gardeners were kind of afraid to ask questions because they thought that they should know the answers. So I felt like I had to reach out to the newbies because they were afraid to ask questions and sound silly or something. So yeah, most of them were. I would. What do you think? I bet we got 100 new gardens, don't you think, Terry, in backyards?
Oh yeah. I mean, we had 25 neighborhoods with coaches, and there was about the minimum of 4 in every neighborhood. So that's 100 there. And then Nanaka said they had 30, and
Right.
I helped probably 6 or 7. But then when the permaculture community garden was created, then that became a place that coaches could send neighbors to, because of all our work parties, and we were constantly teaching how to do lasagna gardening because we were doing it and we needed the help. So all those people that attended the work parties were actually there to learn how to build lasagna gardening. So
Melissa just asked about putting workshops online. We could do that. I just saw Cooperative Extension out there at the Matsu Experimental Farm. It looks like they're doing a bunch of that. So check out Matsu Experimental Farm for those things as well. But that's a really good idea, Melissa. What other questions do you have before we have to go? We have 2 minutes.
Sounds so cool. It reminds me a little bit of kind of an urban farm approach combined with the master gardener approach of using volunteers to teach gardens.
Exactly.
Yeah. And most of the people I was meeting for the very first time, so it was really, really community building. And we had so many people say like this was their mental health, like just coming out and helping, doing the social distancing, but just helping to build a garden was good mental therapy for them. Mm-hmm. And they looked forward to it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Good work.
Yeah.
If anybody wants to help on the networking part, the computer part, I would love to hear from you. So think about that.
Yeah, we just have 1 more minute, maybe time for one last question. I did see a question about what the requirements for volunteers was, and I was a little bit curious about
breathing.
That as well. No background checks, all that kind of stuff.
No nothing. You have to breathe. Yeah, I actually that's a really good question. I really should take that more seriously because there could be some gardener murderer out there. I don't know. I'm way too trusting, maybe.
Well, as part of Cooperative Extension Service, we, 4-H volunteers go through all of that. But it's quite a process. So
yeah.
I have a quick question. How what do you guys decide, or how do you decide what you want to grow?
For me, I decide what we're eating. I still have like 24 jars of green beans from 2 summers ago. So obviously that's not what I'm going to grow next year. So that's what I just do what I want to eat. But if I had more space, I would definitely grow for, the food bank.
It was interesting because we have 4 beginner gardens at the community garden with 3 market gardeners and an expert gardener for First Presbyterian. And it was such a great place for the beginner gardeners and any workshops that we were doing to show the many different beds and what was growing well, what wasn't. We did like 5 different variety of corn, and one did really, really well. The others didn't. But we also got kind of, we planted kind of late. And so it was a really great ongoing course in how to grow, intensive planting, what grows better. And then you could see with all the different gardeners how they were planting and what was succeeding. But there were also, like, I think dozens and dozens of questions on our Facebook page of that very same question, and getting
Well,
that collective knowledge.
And sorry to interrupt you, but thank you so much for your presentation. And that might be a great place to continue the conversation, it sounds like, on Facebook or, you know,
Sure.
going to your website. So it's
Thank
time
you
to
guys
move
all
on.
for coming.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. And we'll move right along with our next presentation here.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.